and welcome. I hope you're all doing wonderfully. Um, we've made it. It's our first birthday. We are one today. So we're celebrating in style. There's not too many first birthday parties where you can drink through it, so we'll make the most of it. We should probably ask Jacob if he will sing happy birthday for us. What do you reckon? Maybe after a bit more wine. um, okay, so we have managed a whole year's worth of incredible lectures, almost all of which are also accessible on our YouTube channel. So if you missed any, do go and check them out. It has been another busy month for us. I can see lots of messages in the chat. I hope it's nothing too important. I'll have a look afterwards. But um, yeah, we've been working hard to bring you all the latest news and features and events and archaeology of the county. The biannual magazine is with the designer right now. So it should be with you all very soon. And the website, as always, is rammed full of incredible heritage treats. Our curator has been out and about meeting schools and community groups, and we are in the final throes of our fieldwork season. So lots going on. But we all know the best the society has to offer is right here. And we have a wonderful talk for you tonight. It's my birthday present to you all. Okay, we hope to avoid any technical issues, but please do bear with us if there are any problems. Jacob will steer us through, as always. If you are not a member of the society, please do think about joining us. It works out only about £3.30 a month, which is £1.70 cheaper than my regionally appropriate Canty sparkling birthday wine. And for that, you'll receive a copy of our yearly journal, Archaeologia Cantiana, full of the most current historical and archaeological research in the county. You'll also receive our biennial magazine, regular newsletters, exclusive access to our collections, conferences, and selected events, opportunities to get involved in excavations and research projects, and you will allow us to keep putting out content such as these wonderful free online talks, doing outreach in schools and community groups and seminars, which, we hope is bringing the benefit of Kent history and heritage to us all. So do check out the websites for details of how to become a member. A bit of housekeeping. The talk will last about an hour, after which we'll have time for questions if you have any. Please keep yourself on mute with your cameras off throughout so that we can hear the speaker clearly. During the Q&A, you can either use your hand, the hand raising feature, and we'll unmute you when it's your turn to ask the question personally. Or if you prefer, you can type the question in the chat box and we will read it out for you. I hope it goes without saying, but please do be courteous and polite to our speaker and to each other. We will be recording the session and it may be posted on our video channels in the future, but no personal data will be shared. And if you have a question, but you would prefer it not to be published, just send us an email and we'll make sure that it's not on there. So if I can just ask everybody to switch off their cameras and microphones so that we can hear our speaker nice and clearly throughout. So on to our speaker. I'm so pleased to welcome a good friend of mine and incredible archaeologist, Giselle Király. Giselle is a commercial fieldwork project officer and human osteologist for PCAS, which I think was formerly Pre-Construct Archaeological Services. Is that right? Yeah. Leading a range of sites across the country. She specializes in osteoarchaeology, analyzing skeletal assemblages, but is a master of many archaeological trades and has led fieldwork in Europe, Georgia, and the UK. Giselle is also a pioneering community archaeologist, working with many groups to promote well-being in archaeology, including the Ministry of Defence's Operation Nightingale, helping veterans on their road to recovery through archaeology, and engaging in community projects across Britain at every opportunity. She has a bachelor's degree in cultural anthropology from Western Washington University in the States, and an MSc in forensic anthropology and bioarchaeology from UCL. She's worked as an assistant forensic anthropologist and repatriation technician for a local native tribe, and worked with the DPAA in Europe, but I'm not sure what the DPAA is. I'm sure she will tell us very soon. You may also have seen Giselle gracing your television screens, as she's a regular host on many well-known archaeological shows, including History Hit and, of course, Time Team. What you may not know is that Giselle is also a football genius and was the star player for the Kent Archaeological Society's football team last year in the archaeological answer to the Champions League, the Montgomery's Cup. superstar winger, scored plenty of goals, scored far more than me. So, without any more from me, I shall pass it over. Giselle, it is over to you.
Oh my God. I've got a whole slide about who I am, but I think you just did the best thing ever. Okay, that was really funny. Let's see here. Working on sharing it. Let's see, can you all see that? Yeah, cool. Great. Let me just shrink myself in the corner. Right. So, welcome everybody. This is the talk. It's titled Trapped in Time, a closer look at Ötzi, Carr, and the not so primitive early people. So we're going to look at frozen conditions in ice, anaerobic peat bogs, flint scatters. We're going to look at a boat. So just a couple different things to learn about primitive people and decide whether or not primitive people really deserve the term primitive. I put early people in there because I prefer early people, and I think after this, hopefully people will as well. So, who am I? I'm Giselle. I am a fieldwork project officer doing commercial archaeology. For those who don't know what commercial archaeology is, that is before quarries, before roads, before houses. We go in and we basically do rescue archaeology. That's like how I like to think about it. So, we go in and get as much history information as we can, and then they can do what they want with the site. I am a human remains specialist as well for PCAS. So any sites we have, I don't know if you can see it, but behind me I've even got a whiteboard of one of those projects. So any sites we have, any cemeteries, I'll basically work on those in the field, but also at home, analysing the bodies. And then I am a community archaeologist. So I do Operation Nightingale, which is for well-being, as Craig mentioned, well-being for military serving and veterans. And it really helps them, archaeology does. And I bet it helps a lot of other people, a lot of you who've just done it as a hobby, get to know people. It's really, really special. And I am a part of Time Team. And Craig mentioned DPAA as well, which DPAA is the Department of Defense in the States, does a recovery program for missing and killed in action war veterans from World War II and other times as well. But there's some projects with that. So actually, July 19th, online on YouTube, the next Time Team, I think it'll be the next Time Team video is coming out, and that's about a dig I was on with DPAA. So that'll be kind of cool. I also own Dirt Nerd, which is a little hat company, because I'm a dirt nerd and I think all of you are as well. And then I really like old stuff. So that's why I think this topic is so important. I mean, I've got a picture of me here with a Roman mosaic. But I actually think that all the older stuff is way more interesting. And a lot of it is because it's not written down. So it's all about how we interpret it and how there's misinterpretations. And I think it's really important. So yeah, we'll get more into it. So a little bit of a warning, there are human remains pictured at the very end. Ötzi the Iceman is a mummy. So something to consider if you don't like that. At the end of Bronze Age boats, I believe it is Ötzi. But then otherwise, take photos of slides, do whatever you'd like. So what we're going to do today is we're going to learn about different early archaeology sites, from local ones, so Kent area, to international ones. And we're going to learn about what we've learned since digging these sites. And then we're going to hopefully redefine primitive, like I mentioned before. So in the past 40 years, for example, have we learned more information that we can redefine primitive? 40 years ago, people were using primitive all the time. Now it's a bit more of an outdated term, but you still hear it. And I found myself saying it the other day as a way to explain something simple. And I think it's important to notice that. And hopefully we can change our perspectives on stereotypes of that early history. So I put a bunch of different papers in about primitive people where the word primitive was used, took out primitive. Well, I guess this caught it a little bit in the green in the bottom, but this is a word cloud of what people write about, and they write about primitive people. So these were the ones that really stuck out to me, were uncivilized, rudimentary, and unsophisticated, which I thought was a bit cruel. I also saw caveman, which, you know, that is stereotypical. That is what people think. So it's very interesting to think about all of these different ways people interpret primitive and then the truth behind it. I also put it into AI. So this on the left was, I just put in a primitive person and it came up with this. And then on the right there, you can see three people. Somebody's just holding a stone. And then at the very bottom, you've got someone sharpening a piece of wood on a rock. So that's not exactly accurate either, but AI doesn't really know what to do. I mean, they've got excellent clothing on, excellent hair. So not too accurate just yet. And then just looking through different people's perspectives on primitive people and how I think about it and how I talk with people on sites about it. People think of them as simple and before written records, foraging and hunting, small scale social organization. It's those hunter-gathering groups and non-industrial. So you don't really hear about any production sites really. I found somebody had written primitive societies were often hunter-gatherers with rich oral traditions. And I thought, that's interesting they wrote oral traditions because why does that matter really? Does that make someone primitive? And I think that we need to be less writing focused. I wrote Romans on there because everyone thinks about Romans as, oh, they wrote everything down. They were so elite, so advanced. But some of these early societies were as well. So we're going to look at 5 different spots. So we've got 4 in England and 1 over in Italy. So we'll start with the top 2 there, the blue and the yellow star. And so here is a lovely artistic rendition of the Mesolithic. Mesolithic, I think, sounds far away for a lot of people. It's 11,000 years ago to about 6,000 years ago. It sounds very far away. And I think people, it's easy to think, oh, people must have lived in cave Mesolithic. I mean, lithic, it sounds so old and Stone Age, Stonehenge, you know, that kind of stuff. But you can see in here, this picture, they've got a fire. They've got bows and arrows. They have a hunting technique. They've got houses. So our perception, even how artists do impressions of it, I think it's all a bit warped. And it's even much more advanced than this. So that simplified version of Mesolithic people, let's change that. So we're going to start with Star Carr, which is quite a famous site in northern England for people who are not from around here. So if you kind of work left to right, you've got Scarborough listed there, and south of Scarborough is the Paleo Lake Flixton. So this doesn't exist anymore. It's set in a valley, the Vale of Pickering there. It's set in a valley. If you ever go to this area, you can actually look out and really easily imagine this lake because of how the valley is. But the lake's not there anymore. Now it's basically hidden under layers of peat and farmers' fields. But that is where Star Carr was located. And so we're going to look a little bit into Star Carr. So Star Carr, 11,000 years old. This is a really, really good artistic rendition of Star Carr. These artistic renditions, I put them in because they're really, really important. It's the best way. It's usually archaeologists who are doing these as well and historians, but it's the best way that we can actually visualize this historical time period. We don't have any photographs, obviously, but we don't have paintings. We have nothing like that. The best we have is cave paintings. But these renditions really put everything, I think, into perspective and can kind of match up everything we've learned into a single photograph. So we've got a small group of people. They were nomadic in the Mesolithic, so people kept changing where they lived. People lived in huts made of wood and mud and straw. So you see that in the background. They used the plants and the animals around them. They were very big environmentalists. They kept dogs as pets, which I think a lot of people might not know, which is really cool that we know that information. They hunted. Now there's difficulty and there's strategy in hunting, and that's very underrated. And then they live next to water. That's really, really crucial. We still live next to water. Everyone lives on the coast or they live next to a big river or at least a lake, something like that. We all utilize water. If you look at this, you've got a boat in the middle there, and you've got this sort of like a dock boardwalk bit. And that is very crucial for what was found at Star Carr. So on the top right, you've got another digital impression this time. of those boardwalks. And so you can see houses, you can see the boardwalk themselves. And then on the bottom, you can actually see what was uncovered during the excavations at Carr. So you've got the boardwalk, which would have been in basically the same exact place as it was 11,000 years ago, which is mental. And basically over time in this environment, this anaerobic environment, layers of plants and leaves and all of that built up over time. And because it was waterlogged, they basically just decomposed in this weird spot, creating peat. And then that peat seals in stuff and keeps it looking fresh, which is the most bizarre thing. As an archaeologist, you don't really expect fresh things. I've actually got a little container of hazelnuts from these sites up in the Vale of Pickering, and they look fresh, which is a really bizarre thing. But to think they're 11,000 years old is just mental. Another one to look at is No Name Hill. Now, this is a really recent site. There have been little excavations, little test pits and things like that. But No Name Hill, as you can see, it's an island in the middle of Paleo Lake Flixton. And so this was dug 2 or 3 years ago with Chester and Manchester unis. And you can see, and York Uni as well. And you can see that it would have been difficult to get to this island. You're not really going to swim. That's a bit far to swim. And you'll see that there are things deposited there. So you're probably going to take a boat. So far, there's no evidence of boats on this Paleo Lake, but as in that artistic rendering, likely there were boats. Hopefully we can go back and we can dig and we can find out. If we can find a boat, that'd be amazing. Yeah. So here's a picture from No Name Hill. You can see where I suppose we're stood when I took this photo. You can look out, that's where the farming fields are, that's all where the Paleo Lake would have been. We're stood on the island, and actually where that water is in that first trench, that's basically where the edge of the water would have been. So everything's, thanks to global warming, things have kind of shrunk. The peat has dried out a lot, but you can still imagine it, I think. And this is what it's like. People are kneeling on these boards. There's peat underneath the people. And then you can see that they're lifting layers of peat and clay up. They're using little wooden tools. And it looks like it's fresh stuff. It's absolutely crazy. If you look in between the two girls on the left, there's a large bone. That's an auroch scapula, and aurochs no longer exist. So it's quite a surreal thing to be digging something like that. So here's another, I think this is a video, yeah. So you can see just how delicate people have to be, but how clean that looks and how clear it is, which is really cool. I get a bit in depth here on the archaeology behind it, but I think this is a whole bit that people don't really get to see. So I think it's quite worth it. So Nick here is going to lift up a bone. And as he cleans it off, you can see just how fresh that looks. And again, that's those anaerobic conditions allowing us to see that. And you can imagine people are coming to the edge of this, they take their canoe, they fill it with things, and then they come to the island and they deposit it. Because it's really hard to understand why a bunch of bones could end up somewhere. And then, of course, because of the weird environment that they've lived in, you have to keep things wet. So we're constantly wetting things down when we're on sites like that. Oh, wow, everything wants to play. So some things that can be found are these antler points. So these are used for hunting or fishing. And I think that this is an incredible display of technology. If you look at it, you can see where that arrow is, that they're actually kind of carved backwards as well, just like modern fish hooks, which would have honestly been inspired by fish hooks like this. And that's so that way the fish hook can get stuck into a fish's mouth, but it'll struggle to get out of the mouth. And then we've got a fish. I think this is really, a lot of times people can look at this in a museum and go, ah, cool, a fish hook. But actually the whole concept behind how that technology is created it's really special. These are microliths. So these, I mean, you can see that finger there. They're so small, so sharp. And these compiled with a stick of wood, as you can see on the right, that's in situ on an archaeology site and then cleaned up back in a lab. That could have made a spear or an arrow, and that would have had a lot higher of a kill potential than if it was just one blade or one microlith on there. So there was also a thought process in their hunting schemes of how can we make this better? How can we be more efficient? And of course, our favorite headdresses. So these are a Carr staple. You can go and see this stuff at the Yorkshire Museum at the moment. There's a display on them. But these are, I think, arts and culture is also underrated for early peoples. You've got these massive headdresses. We don't really know how they're worn. We've got ideas like this stamp in the bottom right, but to actually have the effort to create this sort of mask or some type of headdress would have been astounding, the amount of effort. We've had people recreate them up at University of York, and it's taken ages. I believe it takes days to make one of these. So to make one of these would have been a special purpose. You're going to have a big red deer, and it's going to be really important to make this. So these are another example of the advancement, the time, the energy, and the art that comes with it. And of course, speaking of art, we've got the pendant at Carr. So the pendant was at the time when it was found, it was the earliest form of portable artwork found in England. I think possibly, I don't want to say Europe, but it was definitely in England. It's not really worn, which is fantastic. This was found on the shores for Carr, and you can see in this close-up image in the middle that it's not worn. That would have all been smoothed out if it had been worn. That's just that close-up of the hole in the pendant. And the marks are quite fresh as well. In the bottom left corner, you can see that someone's actually figured out which lines came when. And it's really a fantastic piece of understanding of maybe how they viewed the world. We don't know what it is, of course, but it's a nice way to view artwork in some level, whether it's a map, whether it's a leaf, whatever people want to believe it is. We don't know. We'll never know because no one wrote things down. But we do have this really, really cool piece of artwork, and it shows that someone thought about artwork, which is a really fantastic, more advanced way of thinking. So now we're going to move to Kent. We have a commercial archaeology site from 2004. This was done by Pre-Construct Archaeology. So that was my company before it became the small company that we are now. And what we've got here, if you work left down to the right, you've got kind of a zoom in of this site, and it was for housing that this site was being done. So I think a lot of people, when they think about Flint, they really think about Neolithic. Now we're 2,800 years old. It's a lot later in the time period. So now we're at late Bronze Age and early Iron Age. And when we think of Bronze Age and Iron Age, we don't think of flint, we think of metals. So the fact that these flints are still being used it's really incredible. It shows that technology worked. So I think that's something that, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So what we've got here, if we keep zooming into this site, this is the left-hand part of that site from the page before. So there were 78 struck flints on the site. 28 of them were scattered about. And then 50 of them were in one place. So you've got in the middle there a slot within this Bronze Age and Iron Age ditch. And they were all found in there in one little zone. So they were probably in a container. That's what the excavator decided about it. But there was no proof of a container anymore. And so what we've got here are a select collection from that cache. So we've got a honestone on the top left, and that's a little tiny sharpening stone. And then we've got a series of flints. And we know the time period of these because of the shape, this kind of squarish trapezoidal shape of them, the ditch that they were found in. A lot of things tell us when they were found, but it's the style of them that I like to think about, because if they were so short and stout of little flints, why? Why bother doing that? Was it for any specific purpose? If there was retouching on these and they were kind of fiddled about with, was it because they work better? Are they sharper? Or is it more of an artistic thing or a personal preference? Are they making their own mark on it? We don't know a lot of the answers to these questions, but it's nice to think about people utilizing these tools but that they're more advanced in how they're thinking about them. It's not just make tool, it's create a tool that has a specific purpose and maybe make my mark on it as well. Still staying in Kent, we've got a Bronze Age boat. So this is 3,500 years old. We're going back in time again. Bronze Age boat from a commercial archaeology dig in 1992. This was commercial archaeology, but it was mixed with a research program as well. It had to be because it was very costly to do this. But part of the boat is still there. They could only, as you can see on that top photo, it's still going underneath the building. And so the buildings were so, they didn't know if they would have an impact if they tried to kind of dig underneath the building. It makes it unstable, not very safe. So they've taken out actually 9.5 meters of it, and that's now in the Dover Museum. And it did take 7 years, 1 month of excavation, and then 7 years to conserve it. So it is a timely thing to do something like this. And there is the boat now. So quite impressive, quite impressive. Things I like to think about: how long would it take? What tools would you need? And at Stanwick Lakes, last year, after 600 hours of using traditional tools, I'll show you a picture of that on the next slide, but they created a Bronze Age boat. And so another thing I like to think about is time is money. And nowadays, if we make enough money, we can buy something and that's fine. But for people back then, they didn't have the money factor. It was only time. So things had to be really important to spend a lot of time in them. And if you just think about 600 hours, that's going to be 2 months of people's work, working, imagine the daylight. You only have so much daylight. How much time can you spend on a boat? How important is this boat? There's a lot of extra factors in there to think about. Not just we need to make a boat for hunting, but they would have thought about extra levels within this. So here is these are some of the tools on the left that they used. And on the right, they did successfully float their boats. They made a couple different ones to test a couple different theories, but there you go. And my favorite, Ötzi the Iceman, he was a random discovery in 1991. So what happened was there were some hikers, they were just going on a hike in the Alps over there and the Dolomites, and they saw a body in the ground. You can see on the right there what the body looked like in the ground. I don't know if those were the exact hikers. I think it was, I don't know. I don't know if those are the exact hikers, but they found the body like that. And a lot of people thought it could have been maybe a recent death on the slopes, something like what happens at Everest. And then they thought maybe it's a World War One death. They didn't really know. So they had an archaeology team come out. I have watched videos of the archaeology being done, and it is not very methodical. They basically just had let's just get it out, kind of like, let's just get it back to safety. It's in a very weird, very high up location. I think it's over 3,000 meters high. And if you look on the bottom, I know it's a bit grainy of a map, but you do have Austria and Italy there. And Ötzi was found, oh God, I think it's like 90 meters into the Italy side. So Italy loves to lay claim over it, but actually that's very close to been an Austrian discovery. And if you look at the bottom of these mountains, there's a likely Copper Age trade route. And so there's a suggestion that that is the route that he was walking on when he was found. And Ötzi is a lot older than World War One. He's 5,300 years old. So this is Ötzi here. And there's a recreation that was made of him, and that goes on tour. But the real Ötzi stays in Bolzano at the Museum of South Tyrol, and he's in a freezer to keep the same conditions that he was in. There's a little viewing window, you can look through it. Basically, he was mummified because of the altitude, the freezing temperatures. There's a certain process that happens if someone's been submerged in water and cold water. So all of that creates, they call it rapid desiccation, but it basically is just a quick kind of freeze dry. And we've got a really incredible resource because of this accidental death, accidental process that happened to his death. This is again a bit grainy, but you can see him in the middle, and you can see all of these little stars and things like that around. Those are all finds. So, and they're all from him. Those are all finds from him. There's nothing else really up there. And then that green bit on the right, that's just because that excavation got a bit messy, things got moved around. But it's really dense with finds. And I think Ötzi is the best example of changing this perspective of primitive, because people think Ötzi the Iceman. I mean, it's kind of creates this sort of Iceman, caveman image in your head. And it was so, he was so much more advanced than that. And I actually went to this museum and was shocked by some of the things there. I don't think they're spoken about enough. So hopefully everyone else can speak about them now. So there's a little picture of him on the left, a little recreation. He was found with so many things. He was found with trousers and boots, a hat, a longbow, a quiver with arrows, a grass cape. He had these birch bark containers, which you can see on the bottom right. He had this backpack that was made of a wooden pole and then layers of skins on it as well. And so the backpack, I mean, even that is incredible to me. But something I really like is the flint dagger and the wicker sheath. The fact that it's not just a dagger, let me just put this around my waist, I'll need it, but I want to keep it safe and take care of it and put it in this sheath, and to the effort to make a sheath, to put it in that. I mean, that shows a lot more care and advancement than we normally would think about. Ötzi is also very famous for tattoos. So you can see on all of these images, these black lines. So those black lines, he's got loads of them on his body, on his front and on his back. And there was a correlation that was done between where the tattoos are located and problems that he was facing with his body. He had a lot of lower back pain, and we know that because of skeleton analysis. A lot of joint problems, bad knees, bad ankles, bad wrists. So could this be the first form of acupuncture? That's quite advanced. That concept is quite advanced. So it's really, really cool. Ötzi also had these trousers that were absolutely amazing. And my jaw dropped when I saw them. I know this sounds ridiculous, but they were patches of different colors on these trousers. So there must have been some choice in what patches were being put together, and where the patches were placed. And then the stitching itself, I tried to zoom in on the right there, but you can actually see that they're cross-stitched. And in my head, before I had seen these, I would always have thought 5,300 years ago, we're just going to use a simple stitch. But no, they're actually cross-stitching and making these. I mean, obviously it's sturdier, but the fact that they've made that understanding 5,300 years ago is just amazing to me. And I don't think that's a primitive sign at all. And then, I mean, possibly the most incredible thing ever is he had a first aid kit. So he had a belt, and attached to his belt was this bag. And within this bag, he had a load of stuff. He had some fungus, he had an arrow, flint tools. He had fungus there that was good for tinder, a needle, maybe to sew his trousers or whatnot, a dagger. I mean, incredible that he had the concept. I'm going on a journey and I need to have provisions with me. That's not something that anybody considers. And that fungus there, I zoomed into that because it is a birch fungus, and it was threaded onto strips of hide. And it is a type of fungus that is anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and toxic to whipworm parasites. And whipworm parasites are something that was found in Ötzi's colon when analysis was done. So either he was doing it for himself, he knew he had an issue, and this was told to him that he should do this, or he was supplying this to others as well. But even the fact that he put it on strips of hide, I think is really important, because it tells you that he organized himself and he actually wanted to make sure things were accessible and he could find things easily. There was also mosses, so wound dressing. So it really, truly was a first aid kit. So overall, I think redefining the word primitive is really important. Using early peoples is fine, but even the mental thought of primitive, I think needs to be erased in a way. I think that we need to share more often all of these really, really cool and really advanced techniques of people thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. I mean, even something as like Stonehenge. Stonehenge is being put up, and that's quite a feat. Um, but we don't think about individuals as much. We can think about that engineering, and we think that, oh, wow, what technology, but individuals had their own technology as well, and their own arts and their own culture. So I think we should start reframing it as a more sophisticated culture, a sophisticated level of technology. They were more complex than we think about, and I've written it there, but cost is ours. That's really important back then. And overall, the people back then have had an intricate understanding of the environmental world, which we don't have now. I don't think if any of us, unless one of you was Ray Mears, could probably end up outside and make it. We'd all struggle quite a bit. But back then, that's what they've got. That's their technology, and they're experts at it. So overall, that's it. Thank you for listening. And then if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on any of those things. That there is a recreation. Some Dutch artists remade Ötzi to scale using all of the information they had. And so that's him, which I think is really cool. And there you are.
Giselle, thank you so much. Thank you. That was an amazing, fascinating talk. And I think you're absolutely right. I think, there's a preconception of the abilities and ideas um, of prehistoric people. And it's good that that is being changed and those are being challenged. Those thoughts are being challenged. Um, I imagine, obviously, as an archaeological society, we have a little bit more access to the information, but the general public are still in that kind of old cavemen just knocked stones together and made fires and lived in the freezing cold temperatures, running away from dinosaurs probably. But but yeah, thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, please add them to type them in, or you can raise your hand and I will ask them. Um, I was I was wanting to mention the stone that they found at Carr there, because I think that's an incredible find for 11,000-year-old stone, beautifully sort of perforated, and then that artwork. I mean, it's very in it off. It kind of brings a lot of ideas into, where was it coming from? Was it functional? Was it just simply for creative pleasure? That it opens a lot of doors. I'm sure they'll make an Indiana Jones movie about it at some point. I did want to ask actually about the tattoos. I don't know how much you know about the tattoos, but I wondered if you knew anything about the way that the person was tattooed. As someone with a lot of bad homemade tattoos myself, I know it's not the easiest thing to get right. So, do you know how they went about that?
Yeah, I can't remember what the medium is for the ink. I can't remember. I know someone's figured it out though, so someone could look it up. I believe it was like a stick and poke tattoo. So a needle mixed. I think that what they did is they put the ink or whatever the medium was on the skin, and then they put a needle with basically, and they poked that into the skin over and over. I don't imagine it was a pleasant experience.
No, it doesn't sound it. But yeah, the idea that they were medical was also really interesting. I think
Mm.
definitely. Maggie Sims asked during, I think this was during the talk about the Bronze Age boat, and when you're thinking about the amount of time that is needed to do things, and she said, "I wonder how long the boat timber also had to season before being worked into planks." So,
I mean, I have no idea the answer to that, but I do know that the Stanic Lakes guys, it's taken them, it took them from 2022, I think they started coming up with the idea. And then I know that there's also down in Sutton Hoo, there's the longboat recreation. I know that's Anglo-Saxon, so that's later, but it's taken years just to collect the wood. It's hard to find ancient woodland that is allowed to be taken down, and then also that's of the quality that you need to create these boats because they're it's quite sizable. Um, so the whole task, I mean, from collecting the trees to creating them into planks, I mean, waterproofing them would take ages, absolutely ages.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry if I keep looking like I'm looking away. I've got two screens on. I'm just checking on the questions coming in. So, um, lots of people saying thank you for an incredible talk. Um, Graham has said, hasn't the importance of flint continued way past the Bronze Age? Up to 150 years ago, we were using it to ignite gunpowder, and I still use it in a lighter to light my candles. So,
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, the use of it, I suppose, has altered. People were doing flint knapping and not flint knapping, they were using flint for fire back in Carr time as well. So um, we do. I think they used a bit of fungus as well as for kindling. Um, but I mean, the fact that even using it for a microlith and whatnot was carrying on into the Iron Age. I mean, I was on an Iron Age site the other week and we found a flint arrowhead on an Iron Age site. So it was still being used and it was from an Iron Age context. Either that's a residual find or that's something that they chose to make. But the fact it was still somehow in use in the area is pretty fantastic.
yeah, that's like you say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. There's a technology that's working. Um, Dan has said, thanks, Giselle. Looking at Stark art, that is a massive amount of bones. How much of that are you able to conserve? Does any get reburied on site?
Um, I mean, if we had enough money, we'd probably take all of it and keep it all forever. Um, we did those series of trenches so that way we wouldn't actually collect hundreds of items. We did still collect loads and loads of items. All of that will be conserved and put in an archive. It's part of the agreement to actually be able to dig the site. Um, but we can't rebury it partially because it doesn't matter to be reburied, which sounds a bit odd, but human remains, they can get reburied, but animal bones don't really have the same, I don't know, vibes about them. Um, but also, I don't think the farmer would like that. So, if we were back on his land and made a big pile of bones, I don't think he'd enjoy that very much. We'd like to go back eventually. So,
Uh, Andy, our lovely curator at the Society, has said, excellent talk, Giselle. I knew about Ötzi's tattoos, but had no idea they had potential medicinal placement. And Alex has said, stick and poke, and this is for the tattoos again, I presume. And also rubbing charcoal paste into flint cuts for tattoos. Sounds pleasant.
mm.
Um,
Ian said
Louise,
something above that as well.
sorry, did I
Ian
miss one?
said,
Oh, yeah,
right
sorry.
above.
Can we tell how old um, Otis Man was?
Ötzi, it'll be Ötzi.
And how he died. Do we presume he was travelling alone? Could he have wandered off course? One would imagine a search party looking for him.
Right. So I didn't go into this, but there's a whole murder mystery about him. I do recommend people do a good Google. I don't know how much will be online, but it's pretty cool. So we know, I think he was about 50-ish maybe when he died. Um, something around there. We know we suggest that he was traveling alone. It's suggested just because of the things he was carrying are very isolated. Like if you're going on a long hike, there are a lot of the same things that you'd bring alone. They didn't have extra things. They were really just for one person. Um, and we don't think he wandered off course. What happened is there's a big hit to the back of his head, and then on the back of his shoulder here, there was a arrow wound found, and an arrow was still stuck in a blade was still stuck in his shoulder. So the suggestion at the moment is that Ötzi was on a hike. Somebody saw him and probably didn't want to deal with any kind of repercussions of a bad interaction and decided to get rid of him. And so he got shot in the back of the shoulder and then hit his head on the way down and then never left.
And, so he didn't just fall on his own arrow. Yeah,
No.
potentially was. I did notice that there's quite a spread of his material there. It managed to get quite far. Is that like post? event, or is that from movement of glacial activity, or is that, do you think he just threw everything up in the air when he got shot?
Gets hit and just um, no, I think a lot of that is going to be from the environment. There was a bit the reason his body has actually stayed. I mean, there's probably other bodies that have done the same exact thing. I mean, the world is so expansive. The fact that we've only got very, very few ice people, and ice mummies is really crazy. Um, but there was when he hit his head on the way down, he kind of got trapped in this a bit of a depression in the ground, and then there was sort of a stream that was running over him. So some of that stream must have washed some of these things around as well, but that actually helped preserve him. So it's really, really helpful that that happened, actually.
We've got loads of questions, so I'm going to stop asking ones of my own. Sorry about that. Louise said, I agree that prehistoric people were not primitive at all. I think that's an arrogant view concocted, or at least started by the early antiquarians who couldn't imagine a life any different from their own outside of their religious framework, which was the basis of society at the time, which I would agree with that. Sandra said, where is the Flint cache near Maidstone?
So commercial sites, those will, to get approved to dig a commercial site, anything will have to go to an archive. So I imagine it'll be some Kent-based archives. I don't know which one. And I don't even know how you'd really, I suppose you could ask me for like if you emailed me, I could give you the link of the report, and then you could probably try and contact someone. But um there will be flint caches around Kent in general. Um, I bet Craig knows of some, and Andy and other people as well. So
Unfortunately, we've got no storage space in Kent. We need more. So if anyone has like a cache of money that they'd like to, build an amazing archaeological archive with, we will definitely help with that. I don't know. Was the flint all local that came from that site? Do you know? Was it?
oh,
I mean, there is a lot of flint around.
I don't remember. I don't remember. It's probably local. I mean, just knowing the soil there. I mean, chalk and flint.
Mhm. I love that. Louise Burdett has asked, I'd love to know if there was any usable DNA in Ötzi.
There was. They've been able to extract DNA to find out that he had brown eyes and brown hair. So that's part of why they did that recreation and the style. They do know that there were like little bits of beard around him as well, so they knew he had a beard. So there's been there's been more DNA than that as well. Actually, they extracted some DNA and found out that he's got, oh gosh, living relatives. I mean, this is, thousands and thousands of years old, but living relatives that are in, I think, Sicily, something like that. Like it's still somewhat related to the area, but yeah, I'd have to double check that one, but I think it's something like that.
Okay. Um, I'm sorry if I'm saying this name wrong. Uh, you Margaret Simmons has asked, could the pendant have been used for a tally for counting? That's the Star Card one, I presume.
Yeah, I mean it could have. It's interesting that it's in those shapes, but we don't know how they did tallies. So maybe that was the way they did tallies, and we've just decided nowadays we tally in a certain way, and they tallied in a very different way.
Definitely. Lots of people saying thank you. Really interesting. Linda has said, have been lucky enough to see Ötzi. The little catalogue said the tattoos were made by incisions into which charcoal was rubbed,
Mm.
still used in India and Africa as a method for making tattoos. And he had over 50 apparently. So that was, yeah, that must have been fun, fun times. Um, Dan says, looking at Star Carr, we've done that one, haven't we? So you're saying hi. That sounds good. Um, I'm just trying to see if these are actual things. I'm very sorry.
Yeah,
AI
the
says,
main archive for Star Carr is held at the Yorkshire Museum in York, but there's a significant amount that's held at Chester and Manchester as well. And those are still being analysed. And same with at Yorkshire Museum, but York Uni as well. So they're kind of all over. Um, it's all up north.
Andy says the Flint cache is likely held by the excavating unit as most collecting museums are full. Yeah, unfortunately. Kent is bursting. The report should say where it ended up, or the Kent Historic Environment Record. Jeremy says, I read that Star Carr site is under threat of drying out. Is that right? Can anything be done?
It is drying out. It's not drying out to a detrimental point yet. The thing, this is going to sound odd, but there's not really anything that can be done besides. Now it's going to sound like I'm trying to ask for funding, but I am trying to ask for funding. If we have more funding to dig these sites, we can get the information out before they dry out. And that's really crucial because of global warming is shrinking. We do core sampling and we're able to see how much that peat is shrinking over time. And it is shrinking quite a bit. I mean, I'm just going to throw a number out, but I feel like it's about a foot, maybe every 2 years or something like that. I mean, it's quite significant. That's in the past little bit of time. It has gone worse and worse lately. But hopefully it's more just research and being able to actually get that stuff out because it's going to be rescue archaeology at some point.
Yeah. So if we do have anyone who knows any philanthropic billionaires, first of all, please fund the Kent repository, and then you can fund Star Carr afterwards. Andy again says we do have lots of flint from Lee's Court in our collections, just not quite a scatter. It's more of an explosion, I would say. I'll call it. The Digging Gardener says, sounds like a similar issue to places along Hadrian's Wall. The Magna project was started recently to assess if climate change, warmer summers and drier winters was detrimental to peat preservation.
And I imagine it was.
Very lovely. So I think that's all the questions. So just thank you again, Giselle. Really, really appreciate you coming and talking to us. Amazing talk for our first birthday. So sorry I sprung that on you as well. Yeah, we hope to hear more soon. Where are you digging next? Are you out and about?
Yeah, well, I'm digging up in Sheffield area at the moment, but then I'll be digging down in Portsmouth soon at a place called Rat Island, which people might have seen on Digging for Britain. It's basically an eroding island down in Portsmouth that has a bunch of convict skeletons in it. So
That is amazing.
pretty cool.
Very cool. We will have to get you back to talk about that one for sure. Okay, so thank you all, folks, for attending. We do have lots more coming up, so please keep an eye out for our upcoming talks. On the 17th of July, we've got Isabel Diggle, the Finds Liaison Officer for Kent, discussing Step in the Right Direction, further discoveries of the limb lamp. This is Roman copper alloy foot-shaped oil lamp, the first of its kind in Britain. It even had its own, it was one of the first in the new treasure rules, I think. So pretty important. That'd be a great talk. 28th of August, we have Stephen Clifton from the Maidstone Area Archaeological Group giving an update on the East Malling Healing Sanctuary, a possible multi-phased religious site focused on the sacred water from the nearby spring. There's many unresolved questions still to be answered there. On the 18th of September, we have the amazing Professor Dan Hicks coming along. So he will be discussing pit rivers in Kent, musketry and excavations, introducing the major reassessment of pit rivers' work and life, and the importance of Kent to the work and thinking during his time as instructor in musketry at Hythe and inspector of ancient monuments. In October, we have none other than our very own technological guru, Jacob Scott, is going to talk to us about some super spooky ancient graffiti for a Bonanza Halloween edition. It's going to be a good one. Please come for that. And at the end of the year, we will delve into Kent's medieval merriments with a talk from the fantastic Dr. Christopher Monk. And look at that, it's Christmas. It goes by quickly, doesn't it? We're flying by. So lots more to look forward to. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're not a member, please do think about joining us. It works out only about £3.30 a month, and you'll get our yearly journal, biannual magazines, regular newsletters, exclusive access to our collections, conferences and selected events, opportunities to get involved in excavations, research projects, and everything Kent heritage. So check the website for more details on these talks and a wide range of other upcoming Kent-based events, as well as how to become a member if you're interested. So there's lots more thanks and celebrations of that wonderful talk. Thank you again, Giselle. And I will see you all next month for the second year of our amazing talk. So thank you all. Good night, guys.
All right.